the playground involving the 6 victims, and he'll also take any questions that you might have as well. So I'm going to turn it over right now to Commissioner Ross.
All right, good afternoon. As we all know, we had a very troubling weekend with regard to gun violence. 32 victims, one of which or whom was a suicide. I'll give you a kind of a breakdown of where we were. Of our 21 districts, we did have shootings in 13 of them, with some of them obviously accounting for more than one victim. There were actually 23 shooting incidents, but that's what makes up the 32 different shooting victims, 3 doubles, and obviously the one last night with 6 people that were shot. 6 of them were homicides. One of the homicides was not involving gun violence, that involved a vehicle. We've got one that we believe is an innocent bystander, one that was drug related, as I said, 1 by vehicle, and 2 where the motives are unknown, or the nature is unknown. In the motive category, 4 were related to arguments, 2 were domestic, 1 was a robbery, 6 are unknown, 4 were, we believe, are gang related, 1 was a road rage, 2 possibly from drugs, and got at least 1 other incident that was related to a bar. And so where we remain challenged is our efforts to get our arms around this gun violence. You've heard us talk about our Operation Pinpoint. Of all the shootings that occurred, only 1 occurred in Operation Pinpoint areas. The others were outside of our focused areas, our pinpoint areas. So clearly, in the interest of full disclosure, we have some concerns about possible displacement and, the results that stem from that. And so we will be making adjustments centered around that. Sadly, clearly we've got several victims who had never seen the criminal justice system that we're aware of, and obviously, that's throughout the city. Clearly, some of the young people from the incident last night down in the 12th District would represent that. But we do have 15 with arrest histories that were known to police. We've got basically 3 who have been shot before, 3 of the victims. I think we've got 2 that have been shot multiple times before, and I'm talking about the victims right now. The arrests range from everything from narcotics arrests to prior firearms arrests and gang affiliation as well. And so in addition to what we're doing with Pinpoint, clearly we've got to ramp up our patrol efforts, and we'll be doing that by increasing our patrol efforts in and around those pinpoint areas, as we've had a modicum of success there, which is evidenced by the fact that only 1 shooting happened in our pinpoint grid. But we will increase the number of overtime hours that will be worked, particularly on Friday and Saturday nights, with Highway Patrol, and I believe the Strike Force will be working extended hours. And so we'll be pushing them an additional hour beyond 3 o'clock to 4 a.m. to try to cover some of the times that we've been dealing with. And so in addition to some of the citywide warrant service that we've had, most recently in a division where we've had some success making multiple arrests for narcotics and recovering several guns, these are efforts we will continue. I'd like to give you the efforts. There's a stat that I will give you that I keep giving about the number of arrests for firearms-related arrests, or what we call VUFA. To date, we have 820. 820 people have been arrested for just firearms violation. That's not connected with any other crime, 820. And just by comparison, in 2015, the same date, 464. It's almost double. Now, to me, 2 things. It speaks to 2 issues. One, that the police officers are clearly out there working, and anybody who would suggest otherwise merely has to look at that statistic, and you can see that. The other thing is, it begs the question of what is happening to all these offenders arrested for gun violations. That's a lot of people, folks. 820 for this time of year is very significant. Something that's very concerning to us. I think the other thing it speaks to is a lack of concern about carrying these guns illegally. Don't know whether that's because they're not concerned about the consequences, but I do know that that number is very alarming. And while, those are guns we're glad we got off the street, at the end of the day, it speaks to a willingness to carry these guns and what we believe is a need to ensure that there's accountability. I said this morning, I may have said it last night, but I know I said it this morning, this department is a department that does believe in reform. Is evidenced by things that we've done, which I won't recount. Many of you already know that. However, we also know that people have to be held accountable for violating the law, particularly when it comes to issues like gun violence, particularly when it comes to weapons violations, which ultimately lead to that. If you feel there is no consequences or no consequences for doing so, there are many people who will disregard the law because they're not worried about them. It's not because we're not arresting them. We have to see why these people are carrying them in the fashion that they are. And so for us, we're very concerned about that. We will continue to monitor through intelligence, which is an ongoing thing. As we can see from our analysis from the weekend, as I already told you, with only one being in a pinpoint grid, clearly there's displacement, so we have to make adjustments for that because clearly the people involved in gunplay have done just that. And they see where our focus has been. Our focus has been in these areas because of persistent gun violence that we've had throughout the city. So there is a reason why we had established pinpoint grids. And so now there are people who want to exact revenge, which a lot of this stuff is predicated upon, anywhere that they can. The challenge for us and for many departments is, as you might imagine, gun violence, particularly as it relates to retaliation, is largely emotionally driven. And so just to draw a comparison between that and perhaps a person who is a stick-up boy or someone who likes to rob people or anything like that, or someone who burglarizes, that's not rooted in passion. And so they see the police cars and they make the adjustments and they choose not to do what they need to do. When you want to shoot someone, you don't tend to care. And so we've seen multiple incidents where a police officer is either right around the corner or a block away of some sort, and someone still fires multiple rounds without any regard because they're so emotionally charged and so hell-bent on shooting someone. If you look at least the one incident from last night, what it must take, the lack of regard for life, that you can fire multiple rounds in a crowd of at least 70 people. I mean, how heartless must you be to pull the trigger that many times and to hit that many people, knowing that that would be the likely outcome? I mean, it speaks to a greater issue. You are absolutely right for holding us accountable, as you can't possibly hold us more accountable than we hold ourselves. This is something that we do nonstop. It is the #1 issue that we deal with, as I've said before. The most intractable issue that we contend with, and it has been the case for 30 years since I've been on this job. So any of you who try to suggest this is something new, you're either new to the city or you're being disingenuous. It doesn't change the fact that it is very serious and that it needs to be addressed, and it needs to be addressed from a holistic standpoint. We are going to continue to be vigilant in our efforts. We're going to be using intel as we do. We're getting out there, doing as many things as we can to stem the tide of gun violence. We do need help. We need for people to understand that policing alone will never get us out of this. And for us, what we mean by that, we don't mean the statistic that you report from one year to the next. We're talking about having a precipitous decline in gun violence for this city. And in order to do that, there are multiple things that need to happen to get that done. And so I think many of you know that. Some of you don't report that, but you know it requires far more than just policing to get these things done. And so accountability needs to be near the top of that list. It has nothing to do with us not believing in reform. Someone will undoubtedly hear that anyway, but that's not what I'm saying. I am saying that if you are inclined or you have a propensity to resort to gun violence, you should be held accountable. If you know that you are not otherwise legally able to possess a firearm, you have no business carrying one on the streets of Philadelphia. And for the young people out there, you should know that if you do so, all you're going to do is put yourself in harm's way, where you're either not going to remove yourself from trouble and become a potential victim, or you're going to find yourself a potential offender as a result of pulling the trigger on a gun you didn't have any business having in the first place. And so we will continue not only our directly related gun violence efforts, but all the things that we're doing in efforts to cultivate relationships with the community so that we can continue to get information in order to stave off gun violence, things that we're doing relative to job creation programs, things that are not typical of a police department, because we believe there's a nexus there. We believe there's a nexus between people who are struggling to find some sense of hope, all those things that are outside of the scope of what we would normally do, but we will not rest on our laurels until we touch every single base that we possibly can. People should not have to live like this, worrying about gunfire. You need to know, and as many of you already do, some of these guys, while it's not most, there are some who are so hell-bent on firing guns and harming other people that they don't give a damn about doing that to you either. And so we need to understand as a city that we have to come together collectively, irrespective of whatever differences we may have regarding police-community relations, and deal with this issue and be vigilant in our efforts to do so. So we will do that, and we will continue to do that. What will happen in just a second, Christian, I'll give you 1 second. Some of you may have some very specific questions about the homicides that we have. If you do, Captain is here to outline some of those. If not, why don't you go ahead?
Question just about the guns that is part of this tally. What kind of guns are you seeing if you have those stats?
The ones that rival the ones that we have on our hips right now. 9mm, 40 caliber, state-of-the-art weapons. We're not talking about a bunch of rinky-dink weapons. We're talking state-of-the-art weapons, and I'm glad you asked that, because one of the ways that they're getting these weapons, this is where, and I've said this multiple times, people can help us. People who are otherwise legally able to carry a firearm or possess one, if you could safeguard that weapon, not leave it in your car if you have a permit to carry, safeguard it in your home. This is not being anti-gun for those of folks who might want to hear that. That is not what I'm saying. I'm saying if you have one, please do not allow that gun to get into the hands of someone who will commit a crime with it, because the ATF will tell you that that is a direct means of trafficking for firearms in our city. And so these are the things that can help us immensely. We've already got an issue in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania relative to our gun laws and how lenient they are. We don't need to add to it by putting more guns on the street. So yes, and answer your question, they are state-of-the-art weapons capable of firing multiple rounds, and in most cases, that's exactly what these people do.
You don't prosecute, you arrest, you said people need to be held accountable. Who is not holding accountable?
Well, that's what we're looking at. That's what we're looking at. So you can imagine it takes a deep dive to figure out exactly what is happening with all this. And I don't profess that we have the capacity as the police department to know exactly what is happening at every step of an arrest. And so, but it doesn't stop us from trying. And so we're looking at, we've got a unit that's tracking all our gun arrests to see where they are, what happened, where it happened, and where the ball was dropped, if at all, and to see what happens.
When you've got 800 already, so you've got a pretty good field to work from, right?
We got a pretty good field to work from.
Do you believe the DA's office?
I don't know, and I'm not ready to say that, and I knew that's where you were going with that question, but you better believe that's one of the things we're looking at. But remember, just like many of you think the criminal justice system is just the people standing up here, it is not just the DA's office either. There are judges involved. There's other entities in the criminal justice system. And so we want to make sure that we are all working together and that there are no unintentional consequences of any policies or any things that we're trying to do in this city that may impact us negatively. I mean, that stat alone, 820 or whatever it is gun arrests that I just told you, that's a lot of gun arrests. That to stand alone, that's a lot of gun arrests. And that's why I gave you that stat from 2015. That's significant, folks. And so, again, it speaks to me the fact that some of these guys think they figured something out relative to consequences or lack thereof. Because while these folks out there are good and we're strategic, it just makes me wonder, are we that good? Are we that good, or is it that I'm not worried as a gun toter about the consequences of carrying a gun in the city of Philadelphia?
Commissioner, are you seeing repeat offenders, people who have been arrested multiple times this year for RUFA?
Yes, yes, but that's not even unusual, but yes, we do see that. So these are issues we got to get at the heart of, right? We've got to figure out what's happening, why it's happening, and figure out how to address it and do what we're trying to do collectively as a city, right? We're still not talking about throwing the reform out the window. Please don't hear that. I'm not proposing that. I am saying that there has to be a balance. Balance is the word of the day. Balance, okay? And we hear time and time again that, let's not forget, and this is a national conversation, let's not forget about the victims. Let's not become so offender-centric in our focus that we forget about the people that are out there in these neighborhoods who are being victimized either directly or indirectly. Directly, meaning you're one of the individuals that was robbed, burglarized. Indirectly is you have to see this carnage. You have to deal with it every day. And so these people are just as real a victim as anybody else. And these are things that cannot be ignored. And so we fully accept our responsibility in our efforts or our aim to drive down gun violence. Nobody here is trying to deflect. Enough people do that on us. We don't do it to other people. What we are saying is that we can't do it alone, and that the people out there that are doing this stuff, that are doing it to the very neighborhoods that many people profess to care so much about, are the people who are being victimized over and over and over again, and that just can't happen.
Commissioner, can you just give a little bit more clarity to the 820 gun arrests? Is that the implication that there are more guns on the street than there were 4 years ago, or that there's just more arrests that have occurred?
I don't know. I mean, there's just a supposition on my part that maybe some folks are less inclined to be worried about the consequences, right? And so some of it's anecdotal. And so this is what the deep dives that we're looking to do are about, right? But we do know that clearly there are significantly more gun arrests that are being made, which should be disturbing to everyone. Almost irrespective of why that is, I'm just opining right now on what might be the reason. Ultimately, there's still 820-something arrests for VUFA, people who have no business carrying guns on our streets. That's a lot. I don't care what the reason is. That's a lot.
And that's just from January to June of this year.
That's right to the day. That's just till the day. And so that's an awful lot of gun arrests. But again, coming back full circle, look, we believe wholeheartedly that dealing with gun violence, should be a multifaceted approach. It shouldn't just be about putting handcuffs on people. Ultimately, you want to get to the hearts and minds of people who feel like they have to do it in the first place. They have to pick up a gun and exact revenge. They have to deal with this type of behavior, this subculture of some young men who feel like that is normal to them. And because it is not. It is not. And so we're losing generations of people who could otherwise do other great things because of an emotional response to something that could be handled far differently. So whether you're a parent, a coach, a teacher, as I said this morning, a returning citizen, people who have voices that resonate with young people that can make a difference, because the ultimate goal is to get a young man not to pick up the gun in the first place, not for us to put him in jail, and not for us to have to deal with this accountability aspect. The ultimate goal is to get in front of all this and provide people hope who feel hopeless, provide people a sense of value in their lives, to make sure that they understand that there is more to your life and you have more to add than just worrying about your street cred or your reputation and what someone impacting that does for you and what you feel like you have to do to protect it. These are things, conversations that need to happen. I am concerned that right now, both nationally and locally, we are so mired in this notion to be politically correct, particularly relative to things about reform, that people who otherwise know better, I hear it when I walk the neighborhoods, they hear it. People talk about all the time that things need to change and that we need to be far tougher on crime than people are talking about. It is not the narrative right now. It is not what's talked about. I was on a conference call this morning with 10 chiefs from all over the nation who have similar concerns. We all talked about not forgetting about the victims, right? And this is what's key. Doesn't mean the criminal justice system doesn't need to be reformed, because it does. There's no question. If we didn't believe that, we wouldn't have entered into collaborative reform and be the largest department in the nation to have completed it, among other things that we've done. So clearly we believe in that, but we also believe in balance as well, because we have an obligation to protect people that are out there trying to live a decent quality of life.
Commissioner, did you see any links between any of these shootings over the weekend, and are you concerned at all about the rash of this weekend and what that means potentially for this summer?
So we are always concerned about it, because retaliation is always something that's, unfortunately, is very prevalent. You're always going to get one. It starts somewhere, right? But in many instances, the challenge is figuring out what that connection is between this shooting and one that you might be able to see just happened the day before, or it might be from something that happened 2 years ago because someone just got out of jail and they didn't forget. And so they're going to come and exact that revenge. Retaliation is no doubt, one of the biggest issues that we contend with. I don't want you to forget that drugs are another one today, and that fueling some of our stuff that we have across this city are drug-related shootings, all right? Drug-related shootings for a myriad of different drugs, not just heroin and cocaine. I think some folks got upset before because I mentioned marijuana. Nobody said anything about people who want to smoke marijuana in their house that had nothing to do with an indictment of the marijuana business. I'm talking about two drug dealers who are setting up on each other to make a big drug deal, and one decides, I'm going to take your money instead of paying you for the drugs. That's the people I'm talking about. Those are the type of drug-related shootings that we're still having over marijuana. I don't care if you smoke marijuana in your house. That's your business. That is not what I'm saying for all those who wanted to get angry before about marijuana. That has nothing to do with that. I am concerned about the people who get shot. I'm concerned about the young men who don't seem to understand how they have more to add, more value. You talk to some of these young guys who've either gotten out of this life or who are trying to, you can tell that they have way more to offer. Then there are some, quite frankly, who are stone cold killers. And that's a small percentage. It's not the vast majority. Many of them, we believe, are just caught up, don't know how to get out. They are salvageable. And those are the ones we want to salvage. Those are the ones we want to prevent from going to a graveyard or a hospital or a wheelchair or what have you, or to jail. That's what we're trying to do. That's why we have these other programs. That's why we think the holistic approach is important. Anybody else? All right. I don't think they got any questions. Is that it?
Can I clarify something? You said the numbers that you gave at the beginning, was that from Friday through Sunday?
Right. The whole thing would have been Friday to Sunday. All right.
So we'll turn over to Captain Smith to talk about the incident of Playground.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. As the commissioner had mentioned, we had 6 homicide incidents over this past weekend. I'm going to go right into our fifth incident. It occurred on Sunday evening at approximately 10:08 p.m. 12th District officers responded to the scene of a mass shooting inside the Pascal Playground located at 6900 Reedbird Place. Arriving officers located numerous shooting victims and begun transportation to area hospitals. In total, there were 6 shooting victims. Our decedent was identified as Ezekiah Mete, 24 years old. Mr. Mete was transported to Presbyterian Hospital, where he was subsequently pronounced at 10:43 p.m. The other 5 surviving shooting victims ranged in age from 15 to 24 years old. 4 of those were juveniles. Our preliminary investigation indicates that a barbecue was taking place, attended by approximately 75 people, and that was located inside the Pascal Playground. The cookout started at approximately 5 o'clock p.m. Those gathered were celebrating various graduations for friends and family. A group of 3 black males were observed near the parking lot area of 6900 Reedbird. One male, described as wearing a dark hoodie, opened fire indiscriminately, striking the 6 victims. The males fled towards the basketball courts and exited the park near 70th and Reedbird. 12th District officers observed the males run from the park and get into a newer model silver Nissan Rogue. The officers attempted to stop the vehicle, but the offender's vehicle eluded the officers, leading them on a pursuit west on Grover's to 72nd Street. The officers broke off the pursuit in order to attend to the multiple shooting victims. The motive for this incident is really unclear at this point. However, we are working with the Patrol Bureau as well as Criminal Intelligence Bureau on following up on several leads that we have. Now I'll take questions.
Do you think the victim was targeted, or was he just random because the guy just began shooting?
I can't say specifically who the offender would have been firing at, so I can't say whether he was specifically targeted.
Can you spell the gentleman's name?
His last name is going to be M-E-I-T-E. I pronounce it as
It is
Mete.
Isaac.
The first name is I-S-I-A-K-A.
One gun, one gun used, or were there several?
The reports I have, there was only one shooter.
There was a home nearby on Garden Street shot up a couple hours later. Do you think that might be related, possible overtime?
I didn't receive any reports that was related to this incident.
There was a shooting on the block around the park last Sunday. Do you have any idea if this was connected to that in any way?
We are looking into the possibility that it's related to that incident. Like I said, we're working very closely with our Criminal Intelligence Bureau.
Well, these three parties that were going on, were they all sort of combined, or was it happened to be three parties in the park at that time, or any sense of that?
Well, I didn't receive reports that there were three separate parties. There could have been 10 separate parties for all I know at this point in time. Like I said, we're very early in the early stages of the investigation. It just occurred at 10:08 last night.
How many shots were fired there? Do you know how many the shooter fires at the park in the park?
I don't have that information right now.
What type of gun, do you know?
I believe it was 9mm used.
Mass shootings aren't typically, that language isn't typically used to describe the type of violence that occurs regularly in these types of neighborhoods and urban neighborhoods. Is this type of shooting, 6 victims, 1 dead, is that relatively unprecedented?
I don't know. It's not unprecedented. No, we've had multiple shootings in the past. Yes.
Why do you think it's getting the attention and labeled mass shooting, whereas other shootings, if it's not unprecedented, happen?
Well, because that's what it is. It's a mass shooting involving multiple persons. It's unusual, but it's not unprecedented.
What makes you think that the shooting the weekend before had some link here?
This was information that I've been receiving from Criminal Intelligence Bureau.
And that was last week ago, Saturday or Sunday, or when was that?
I'm not sure.
But it was prior weekend.
It was prior to this incident. Yeah, I think it was approximately a week ago.
In the same park? In the same, similar?
In the same vicinity. I don't think it wasn't in the park. It actually occurred on a street.
The cops were following the car, but as of now, there's no clear insight into who the person was, the age, or anything like that.
That's correct. Yeah, we don't have any suspect information at this time. So video is going to play a huge part, as it always does with all of our investigations. So our homicide investigators will tirelessly backtrack and try and locate that vehicle, its whereabouts, and then try and glean a tag from that video.
And to clarify, the reports of 8 injured initially were wrong, and 6 that were injured, one killed.
Let me get that. Yes, sir. So a couple things. Yeah, there were, because there were 2 other victims unrelated at the same hospital. And so they logically thought it was the same incident, which we understand. And that's why I know I typically try to tell you in the beginning, what I'm saying is preliminary. So because it's always subject to change, and we only know what we know. In fact, the question about the car, I don't believe we're 100% certain that they were even the shooters. They could have been taking people to the hospital. So that's something that we're not clear about. As to your question about mass shootings, we didn't label that. Some other folks did. But they, to your point, I don't disagree with where you're going. All right, so we'll leave it there. Anybody else? All right, folks.
All right, everybody, good afternoon, and thanks so much for watching News Now, which is a part of Fox10Phoenix.com. My name is Pilar Arias. I just hopped onto the controls about 30 minutes ago. We have since been live in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, where they had an extremely violent weekend. 6 dead, dozens injured.